with the 75 people they say they interviewed, did they say anything about video was recording?
Yes, they have collected video.
So it is video of the incident?
Yes, they have collected video.
Okay.
There is video of the actual stabbing?
There's video, there are several different videos that they verified.
Why were you armed, sweetheart? Karmelo, why were you armed at school? Explain your self-defense. How is this self-defense?
Excuse me. Every Texan has the right to defend themselves when they reasonably fear for their life. Self-defense is a protection that applies to each and every one of us. There are two sides to every story, and Karmelo is a 17-year-old kid and an excellent student.
I jumped for joy when I heard the news earlier today because Karmelo Anthony deserves to be at home with his family. He was put in a tough situation, and as a 17-year-old child, he acted out of fear. And I just don't understand how y'all cannot see that.
The moment I found out about the Karmelo Anthony's case in Frisco, Texas, this was my first thoughts, my very first thoughts. Anybody that has ever been in Frisco, stayed in Arlington, Dallas area, I mean, just no Texas, period. You know Frisco don't like us like that. Nothing else really matters. That's why, in my opinion, we learned of who he was. And his picture was on the internet less than, 24 to 48 hours? This is why the racism is at an all-time high. It was in Frisco, Texas. It don't even matter if it was self-defense or not. If the county itself is racist.
All right, guys. So once again, we got to talk about the viral story out of Frisco, Texas, involving Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony. Now, everybody should know the Austin Metcalf Karmelo Anthony story. Okay, this is one of the biggest stories in the news because of the racial nature of this story. Okay, you have a black teenager, Karmelo Anthony, stabbing Austin Metcalf, a white teenager, in the chest during a track meet because allegedly, according to witness testimony, Austin Metcalf, the white teenager, had approached Karmelo Anthony, the black teenager, about the fact that Karmelo Anthony was in the wrong seat, right? He was under the wrong tent. And Austin Metcalf had approached Karmelo Anthony and told him to move. Karmelo Anthony says, touch me and see what happens. And at that point, there's some type of physical altercation. Presumably, Austin Metcalf had touched Karmelo Anthony. Now, what does that mean? At this point in time, we really don't know the nature of the touch that made Karmelo Anthony allegedly feel as if he could stab Austin Metcalf in the chest in self-defense. That would be a justified action. But according to witness testimony, okay, it is likely that at the time in which Karmelo Anthony had warned Austin, hey, touch me and see what happens, Karmelo Anthony had reached in his bag, okay, presumably grabbing a knife. And at that point, Austin pushed Karmelo. Okay, the nature of the touching was a push or a shove. And at that point, Karmelo Anthony decides to stab Austin Metcalf in the chest. Okay, and then he ran away. He got caught by police, was arrested, thrown in jail, charged with murder. He's claiming self-defense, and now he has been released on bond. Okay, because a woke judge.
Now, when we can have, summer interns come up and they are every race, creed, color, gender, but they can see someone that looks like them on the bench. I think that is so beneficial because it's representation. And when they look at me, young kids, law students, whoever it is, I want them to say, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Decided that $1 million was too much and dropped it to $250,000 after a lot of pressure from the woke activists because the woke activists, the race hustlers, are really, really, really rooting for Karmelo Anthony. And the primary reason, clearly, is because Karmelo Anthony is black and Austin Metcalf is white, right? That's it. Because the race hustlers, a vast majority of them, their claims are not grounded in reality. They're making up stuff. They also don't really understand self-defense. They are not making good faith arguments for self-defense. And that's really what I want to talk about in this story, because what is happening is exactly what I said would happen at the beginning of this story. I told you guys that you're not going to be able to argue with these people who are going to defend Karmelo Anthony because they're not defending him based off any type of logic, facts, law, nothing. It's just race. It's literally a racial thing for them. Okay. And that's clearly what is happening. Okay. Which kind of says a lot about race relations in this country. So I want to talk about that. I really do want to talk about that because some of the things that are just being made up by the race hustlers in order to defend Karmelo Anthony, again, it's wild, right? It's mind-boggling, to be honest with you. But again, this is what you do when you don't have a strong defense. So without further ado, let's listen to this news clip to get the latest on this Karmelo Anthony story.
What you're seeing right now was the 17-year-old accused of murder walking out of the Collin County Jail this afternoon after posting bond. Thanks for joining us here at 5 on a Monday. I'm Nicole Baker.
And I'm Doug Dunbar. So let's dive into it. Karmelo Anthony had been in jail since the 2nd of April, accused still today of killing another teenager. That's Austin Metcalf. And that accused killing happened at a track meet at a high school. Today, a judge reduced Anthony's bond from $1 million all the way down to $250,000. J.D. Miles was there for it. He's live for us right now outside the Collin County Jail. Anthony just left. We saw the video. What else do we need to know?
That's right, Doug and Nicole. Just 6 hours or about that much time after a judge lowered his bond, Karmelo Anthony was released. The judge who made the decision warned the accused murderer that if he violates any terms of his probation or tries to leave his home, he will be brought back right here to the Collin County Jail.
Karmelo, do you have anything that you'd like to say to the victim?
Karmelo Anthony emerged from the Collin County Jail 13 days after his arrest for the murder of Austin Metcalf. The high school student had nothing to say as he headed to his parents' home, where he will be confined to an ankle monitor. It's the result of a hearing this morning over whether to lower his bond. The families of both Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf arrived at the Collin County Courthouse this morning with extra security in and around the courtroom. A new defense attorney representing the Frisco teen accused of murder had his client's father testify about his son's character, telling the judge he was a captain of his football and track teams and that he held 2 jobs while in school. He's an A student, said Andrew Anthony. Does he have plans to go to college? Yes, sir. And prior to that,
yeah, he was going to be an astronaut, right? Which is what they say every single time. Every single time you have stories like this, is always the same thing over and over and over again. He was an astronaut in the making, right? He was going to go on to do amazing things, right? This is what they say. That is the family side of the story. However, you do have other sides of the story in regards to Karmelo Anthony's character.
Centennial students shocked about what happened, that one of their classmates could be charged with such a serious offense. One girl that we spoke with knew Anthony pretty well, that she says, and told us this.
I'm in shock because it's like, I wouldn't expect that from him. I only know him fighting and stuff, like, you know, but to take someone's life is just like a different level.
Yeah, so that was a classmate of Karmelo Anthony, and I would say that she's probably likely to be less biased than the family, and she says, hey, I didn't expect him to go out there and start murdering people, right? I'm surprised by that. I'm pretty sure most people don't expect their teenage classmates to murder people, okay? So no surprises there. But she says, you know, I know him for fights and stuff, right? Fights and stuff. Just saying, right? Do straight A, you know, model students get in fights, I guess, right? Maybe. But when I was in high school, when I was in school, the kids that tended to be kind of the nerdy ones, again, the model students, the straight A students, you know, the type of students that the family and the race hustlers are trying to say that Karmelo Anthony was, which I'm not saying that he wasn't. I'm just saying those students tend to not get in fights, right? They tend to avoid fights at all costs, right? I don't think any of the smart kids I knew in school were known for getting in fights and stuff. That's all I'm saying, right? And if he did get in fights and stuff, to me, again, that would signal that there, you know, probably some anger issues going on, which could have contributed to what, you know, happened at the track meet. Just saying, just using a little common sense. Just saying.
What was on his mind was what college he was going to go to. This is a tragedy all the way around for both families.
Anthony, who told Frisco police he stabbed 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a track meet in self-defense after an altercation, sat in a jail jumpsuit and shackles, while prosecutors challenged how the father could not afford the 10% needed for $1 million bond, with an online donation fund that's up to $400,000 and growing. With access to over $400,000, why haven't you bonded him out yet? Asked the prosecutor. We don't have access to that money, replied the father.
It's hard for everybody to be level-headed at a time like this, so that's where we come in. It's our job to be level-headed, to be fact-based, and to follow the truth wherever it leads.
And prosecutors revealed today that Karmelo Anthony was involved in an assault-type altercation at his school on February 4th that was handled internally by the school district. Other than that, he has an unblemished record, which is probably one of the reasons why the judge agreed to lower his bond.
So I'm just saying, the classmate came out and said, well, Karmelo, I know him for getting in fights and stuff. Now you got this report coming from the school saying, yeah, Karmelo had just recently gotten a fight. So again, the evidence here tends to support my thesis that most likely what happened is that Karmelo Anthony has anger issues, and he made a really, really, really bad decision to stab Austin Metcalf because of those anger issues. But that has not stopped the race hustlers from raising almost $500,000 for Karmelo, okay? Because these people swear up and down that this is self-defense, okay? It's self-defense, and Karmelo is innocent, and the people that think that he's guilty, well, they're just racist, right? You're just racist, okay? Because clearly this was self-defense, okay? And this is what I really want to talk about in this video, right? Because what is happening right now is exactly what I said would happen, okay? You're going to have one side, again, the pro-black side, defending Karmelo Anthony, right? They are just going to essentially make up facts. They're going to make up evidence. They're going to essentially warp reality to be what they want it to be, okay? And again, the reason why they're doing this is because they don't have strong evidence. And Karmelo Anthony, at least as of right now, and this could change because there allegedly is video evidence. So this could change, but as of right now, Karmelo Anthony does not have a strong self-defense case, okay? I mean, everybody knows this, right? That's the crazy part about this, like the pro-blacks that are so passionate that this is self-defense. We all know that if the races were reversed, okay, if you had a white kid stab a black kid in the chest because the black kid told a white kid to get out of his seat and then push the white kid in response, we all know that these people who are defending Karmelo Anthony would not be saying that's self-defense, right? They would all understand the concept that you cannot use deadly force when you are not being met with deadly force. There was no reason for Karmelo Anthony to reasonably believe that there was a serious threat on his life or serious bodily harm. There was no reason for him to believe that.
For self-defense in Texas because Texas is a stand your ground state. This is what he had to say about that.
In order for Karmelo to prevail on a self-defense defense, he has to establish that he reasonably feared for his life. And, that's a steep hill to climb given the facts that I've heard so far, but that's the standard here in Texas. It is going to be incredibly difficult for Karmelo's defense team to establish that Austin, the 17-year-old who wanted Karmelo out of his tent, represented a deadly threat or even serious bodily harm. Now, again, we don't know what was said. We don't know what was threatened. But what Karmelo said was that he was going to put his hands on me. That's not he was going to kill me. That's not, I thought he was seriously going to hurt me. It was an offensive touching. All he described was the potential for an offensive touching, which is not going to be enough without more. And the evidence is still coming in.
Something like this that just evolved and snowballed, that's what it seems like to me, snowballed over something that may have just been some high school students getting into some type of disagreement. And so the issue is that once that disagreement again begins to snowball, what is appropriate for self-defense? Whenever we're into just a oral disagreement, then that transfers over to a physical disagreement, how does it transfer then to a knife? And so, and under Texas law, you have to provide equal or lesser value, generally, so force, whenever we're talking about self-defense. Is it reasonable and is it proportionate to that of what the perpetrator initiated before? Because in this situation, the suspect is stating he told the other person pretty much, don't touch me. And that person did, in fact, touch him, and then he pulled out a knife. So yes, maybe there was some issues there where we talked about physical altercations, but that doesn't give you the right or the responsibility to respond back with a knife. It has to be reasonable and proportionate.
So that in and of itself, and also the fact that he brought a knife to school property, right? A weapon to school property. Yeah, he's going to have a hard time with his self-defense claim, right? Just my 2 cents, okay? Just my 2 cents, okay? And again, it doesn't take a lawyer to understand that very basic concept in regards to, again, why this is really hard to claim self-defense. But I kid you not, the race hustlers, they're just living in a completely different reality. We're not living in the same reality, because in their reality, this is a completely different story, right? It is not the story that is the story according to the police report, the witnesses, all of the news outlets. No. That's not the story. The story that everybody's telling us, okay, is wrong. Okay, that story is wrong. The real story is that Austin Metcalf and his brother, well, they're bullies, right? They're neighborhood bullies, and they actually knew Karmelo Anthony, right? And Karmelo Anthony was being bullied by them white boys, right? Except the woke legal team of Karmelo Anthony came out and said that's actually not true.
That it can to address the racism and the bigotry. We have saw the police chief, a statement being sent out by the police chief that was false. We have saw a false autopsy report that was false. We have to caution the community to say, hey, we cannot trust everything that is online. The disinformation that is going online is hurting this case, and it has to stop. It has to stop, y'all. As we know it right now, Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony did not know each other. They did not know each other. Let's stop it. They were not at a party together. Let's stop the lies regarding this situation.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand. The made up reality is so bad, okay, from these people defending Karmelo Anthony, that even the woke legal representation of Karmelo Anthony is telling them, you're lying so much, you're making up things so much that you're hurting our case. You're actually hurting us when you do this, right? You have articles on the internet on all of the fake accounts spreading misinformation about what happened, right? Literally just making up stuff, because in their world, this is justified, okay? And they will literally believe anything that anybody puts on the internet that aligns with their worldview, that aligns with the reality that they want. Okay, not the reality that's in a police report, not the reality that's from the witness testimony, not the reality that the news is covered, not the reality of the actual facts that we know right now. Okay, no, the reality that they want, and they will believe anything that will support their worldview, including random people hopping on the internet and claiming that no, what actually happened is that Austin Metcalf and his brother jumped Karmelo.
An additional eyewitness came out, and they give a very different story. A similar story that we've seen time and time again. Once again, pattern recognition, I'll say. I'm noticing a pattern of the same story is being told over and over and over again, which usually leads to some form of credibility. So you have this person who's saying, hey, that Karmelo, he was under the tent, and he was on his phone or something, or he's doing something. And that Austin wasn't even under the tent at the time, right? It was pouring down rain. People are trying to get to their cars and whatnot. And Austin and apparently his brother come over to Karmelo. Words are exchanged, and he says they tried to swing at him. Karmelo goes to his bag and then they pursue, they continue on.
It was raining. They got rained out like crazy bad. Everybody trying to get back to their cars or get in, places where they, wouldn't get all extra wet at. Dude was sitting up under the tent, right? He was on his phone, right? My daughters was up under the same goddamn tent. Yeah. So I'm paying attention to my kids, but at the same time, they're in the same vicinity. So I'm watching everything going on around it because I'm there for my children. So dude walks up. McKellen, bro, he wasn't even under the tent at the time. They came from a whole separate tent and walked over there. They intentionally went over there to this kid, man. Dude was sitting there on his phone just trying to get dry. You feel me? One thing went from another. They grabbed this man and they tried to punch on dude. Dude went in his bag and whatever. They went to try to jump this dude and punch on this dude, man. And he protected himself, dude. That's what happened. Yeah. It wasn't just one. It was both of them, bro. Austin, that dude that got unalive, and his brother physically went over there to intentionally. It's not to the point that he brought a knife. For one, it wasn't on school property. The school is at least 5 to 10 miles away. It was community track meet, bruh. It wasn't a school track meet. So he had the right to have a knife on his person, bro.
It's always going to be a different story than the main story that the racist right tries to promote. Always going to be a different story. When people talk about you can't use lethal force is in the eye of the beholder, right? It's the same thing we have when it comes to an officer, that they fear for their lives. It can't be in hindsight. It has to be taken into account of what happened at that time. So if Anthony is being attacked, he's already been assaulted, and you have two people, it's 2 versus 1. In addition to them being completely outweighed, he's outweighed by them, right? They weigh 200-something pounds or whatnot. Anthony's a very skinny kid. Then yes, a lawyer could absolutely argue that he had reasonable belief that he was going to have not immediate imminent death, because it's not imminent death, but also a serious bodily injury. Those are 2 factors that come into play. So if he absolutely believes that he's going to incur serious bodily injury, then yeah, pulling out a knife to defend yourself is absolutely reasonable. It's absolutely can be seen as self-defense.
Wow. Honestly, what can you say at this point? I only can laugh. At this point, okay? They don't care. But let me actually stop there. They're not intelligent enough to understand the law, right? But even if they were intelligent enough to understand the law, they don't care to understand the law. They don't want to understand the law. And at this point, they're only defending Karmelo Anthony because he's black. That's it. Okay? The Amazing Bottom, for whatever reason, believes that some random dude on the internet, we can't see his face, we don't know who he is, there's no evidence that the police have talked to this man, we've not seen any witness testimony whatsoever that comes close to what this dude is saying in regards to what happened, right? In terms of Austin Metcalf and his brother jumping Karmelo Anthony. But for whatever reason, the race hustlers are accepting this random testimony from, again, a dude that does not sound credible at all, okay? Something just randomly put on internet. Anybody could have recorded that, okay? They're accepting this as if, well, that's what happened. Karmelo Anthony was jumped. That justifies him using a knife because they know that the actual story based off, again, the police report, the witness testimony, the news clips, everything that we know, right? The verifiable facts and details of the story. Now, again, there could be video that comes out that supports this random guy, right? I'm not saying that's not possible. I'm just saying, as of right now, what we know, there's no evidence to support the claim that Karmelo Anthony was jumped. There's no evidence to support the claim that Karmelo Anthony was beat up. He had no bruises. He had no signs of physical injury, anything like that. Nothing that would have justified Karmelo Anthony using lethal force. But again, they have to cling to misinformation because they know that based off the facts and evidence that we have right now, Karmelo's self-defense case is weak. And they know that. They know it's not self-defense. They know, as the facts are right now, it is likely if his trial was held today, he's going to be found guilty. They know that, but they don't care. And that's why there's no point in arguing with these people, because guess what? If they're wrong, which as of right now, they are likely going to be wrong, but if they're wrong, they're just going to say, well, the system is racist, right? Karmelo Anthony was found guilty because it's racism, right? That's what they're going to say. They're going to say the system is racist against black men. Black men can't claim self-defense. They'll start bringing up a whole bunch of different cases involving black men not being able to claim self-defense. They won't get the facts correct about those cases, but those cases are basically going to be irrelevant to what happened here in Texas. But it doesn't matter, because they know at the end of the day, if they're wrong, they'll just say, well, it was racism, right? That's why he was found guilty. It wasn't because I sided with Karmelo Anthony because he's black, right? It wasn't because the facts and evidence are currently not on the side of Karmelo Anthony. No, it's racism, right? That's what it has to be. That's what these people do every single time. They don't understand the law, okay? I don't think they're capable of understanding the law. They don't understand the law. They don't even have the facts correct about the situation. They just make up their own reality. And then when they don't get the outcome that they swear up and down that they deserve, then again, they'll just say, well, it was because the system's racist. It's not because I'm delusional. It's not because I'm living in a different reality. It's not because I just sided with Karmelo Anthony because he's black. It's not because of the hatred towards whites, blinding, judgment. No, it's not that. It's because of the system, man. And that's what they do. And that's why there's no point in people stressing out, arguing, and engaging with these people that are not making good faith arguments in regards to why this is self-defense, because they're not even living in the same reality. So, all I'm saying is that who knows? Maybe video evidence will come out and the race hustlers will be right. Maybe Karmelo Anthony was jumped. I don't know. But the evidence as of right now suggests that's not what happened. But we will see. I'm just saying that as of right now, it doesn't look good for Karmelo. And the reason why you know this is because his defenders are essentially relying on made-up stories and misinformation in order to defend him, okay? Because as of right now, he does not have a strong self-defense claim. But again, we will see. Maybe the video evidence will change it. Who knows? Maybe there will be some surprise witness testimony. I'm just saying, as of right now, you're essentially arguing with people who are living in reality versus people who are not. Okay. And I think that's one of the main reasons why this story is so frustrating to talk about. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.